Hello guys, and welcome in. This is our very first episode of Upstate Blueshirts. We're going to do a podcast just specifically about the New York Rangers, and it's going to be hosted by me, Travis, and Nico. If you guys don't know, we also have a general sports podcast called Short, Fat, and Balding with me, Nico, and James. Our very first episode is going to be a solo run just because schedules can be hard to hammer out, and after given us the end of the first month of the season and the fact that the Rangers just came off an absolutely bonkers road trip, I figured it was prudent to get the podcast out, get us rolling, and then from there, Nico and I will roll the best we can. Obviously, sometimes we'll have to rip a solo, but a little history about myself, and I'll let Nico speak to him when he joins the podcast. We're called Upstate Blueshirts because we're from upstate New York, a little town 25 miles south of the Canadian border. We are actually closer to Toronto and Buffalo and Boston and Ottawa and Montreal, all of those NHL teams, than we are to New York City. We come at it from a different perspective because the New York media can be pretty harsh, and that can kind of skew things. The New York Post obviously is a very harsh critic of the Rangers. Things that go awry can be negatively spun, and so I just wanted to give everybody a chance to listen to a podcast from people who maybe try to see the other side of the coin. I mean, granted, if criticism is due, criticism will be received, but it won't be without merit. We're not just going to criticize for the sake of criticizing to get clickbaity kind of things because we're not in that competitive of a market. We'll slightly address the rest of the league. Obviously, the New York Rangers do play in the NHL, so if things that occur in the league are prudent and relevant to what we're talking about, we definitely will bring it up. And then a little bit more about me. I started watching hockey. I never played hockey growing up. I started watching hockey in college to kind of pass the time at night when I was doing homework and stuff. Started out, oddly enough, a Flyers fan. I think it was just because the first team that I had really watched. I wouldn't call myself a fan. They were just a team that happened to be on, and I had a couple of fraternity brothers who were from Philadelphia, so they were like, oh, if you're going to watch hockey, watch the Flyers. And then when I came home, I got into the MSG media market. The Sabres are just terrible, and I don't really like any Buffalo teams. Nothing against them, it's just not my cuppa. I'm a Knicks and a Yankees fan, so I naturally gravitated to the Rangers. Started following them, and then they had their cup run with Hank losing to the Kings in 5 games. Granted, 4 of them went to overtime, but either way, that cemented my legacy, my love for the Rangers. Through that, I dragged some other friends into the posse with me, and so now I have a nice little network. My wife has never watched hockey before. I've turned her into a Ranger fan. I've got friends who kind of contribute, and we're all passionate about it, so it's nice to have that. So that's a little bit of history of me. And then for some structure on the show, basically, we're going to do this twice a week. We're going to try for Mondays and Thursdays, which bounces around the recording schedule for Short, Fat, and Balding, which releases on Fridays, typically records Tuesdays or Wednesdays. And it also allows us to keep up with games as they go. Obviously, the NHL season is fast-paced. It's usually a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday league, so if we're able to keep up with that, we're going to be able to cover 2, 3, or 4 games a week in real time as they happen and kind of keep up to breast on what is happening within the Rangers organization. With that being said, we will kind of start out with a quick review of the week, go over some of our favorite things that happened, things that we didn't like that happened, a quick cutaway montage, and then get into what's going on, what's going to be expected, and how we think things can change. So with that being said, we're going to cut right into the first breakaway montage after introductions and go over my favorite calls of the week regarding the wonderful victory 5-game sweep of the road there for the New York Rangers.
So this means a lot. And he showed growth last year. Open man, Panarin, he scores! Beautiful pass. DeAndre Miller. Nice move through the neutral zone. Dropped it off to Hedl. Pass intended for Panarin. He scores! Panarin to Fox. Panarin with room. He plays it down low, score! Chris Kreider on a beautiful deflection. Aaron's got it. Wrist shot just wide off the end board. Trocheck behind the net. Out to Zibanejad. They're trying to set him up. He's ready. A deflection in front by Fox. It goes through the crease. Score! Mika Zibanejad! Dropped it off. Pedersen went down. Kreider on the takeaway. Kreider against Hronek. Kreider. Score! Keandre Miller wins it in overtime. Zibanejad wins it. 35 seconds to go in the overtime. Keandre Miller. Does he have another game winner in that stick? Panarin. Zibanejad. He scores! They did it! The Rangers have swept the road trip! 5 for 5! Mika Zibanejad!
Alrighty, so as you could hear from our wonderful MSG Networks and Sam Rosen, the Rangers went 5 for 5 on the road. They played the Vancouver Canucks, the Edmonton Oilers, the Calgary Flames, the Seattle Kraken, and the Winnipeg Jets. Across that bit there, I might have missed a game. Just give me a second. Seattle, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Winnipeg. Okay, yes, so they started out in Seattle, went to Calgary, went to Edmonton, went to Vancouver, and then went to Winnipeg. Overall, at the end of the month of October, the very first month of the NHL season, through 9 games, the Rangers are 7-2-0, with no regulation, no overtime losses. So they have 14 points. They are sitting atop the Metropolitan Division, which is a stark contrast from last season. Anybody who was around me last season, the first 3 months of the year, it probably wasn't a fun experience because I was miserable. Turk didn't have the guys buzzing. They just seemed uninspired, and that kind of rolled throughout the season. Obviously, Trouba had the helmet toss, and that they went on a bit of a tear there. But even then, I didn't think the Rangers ever played inspired hockey. I always thought that they just used their talent to win. They never really put the what's the term I want to look for? They never put the foot to the throat and just declared the game over. So what I like seeing and what I have been seeing is through 9 games, the Rangers have a 5-1 win, a 2-1 win, a 4-1 win, a 3-1 win, a 3-0 win. So there's 5 wins right there where they combined in 5 games gave up 4 goals. And that is huge. Usually the Rangers are a team that's getting outshot 2-1. They are just getting blasted in front of the net. They're giving up second chance opportunities. That's not happening with Laviolette's system. And so that's my first big takeaway from this season is that the shift in the system, granted it was bumpy at the start when they went 2-2, the shift in the system is showing to be beneficial. The Rangers are getting more opportunities on the other end. They're getting those dirty second chance opportunities. They're defending those on the defensive end, and it's allowing them to get out into their offense and establish offensive zone presence, which was, it seemed like the Rangers were a one and done team except for when they were on the power play last year. This year, it seems like they're a puck possession team, which has been really, really nice. A nice adjustment in a style of play that I like to see. The 1-3-1 is obviously different for them. Clogging the neutral zone has never been a thing that the Rangers have ever done. I'm pretty sure that they have run just a 2-man neutral zone setup for their entirety, for the entire 97 years they've been around. So this is definitely brand new for them, but I think it suits the way that they play really, really well, actually. As far as the players go, you can tell that it's doing well for them. I mean, major players are off to massive, massive starts. You got Artemi Panarin, who's the team leader in points. He's on a 9-game point streak, which is only tied with Willie Nylander up there in Toronto. So every game Panarin's played, he's had a point at least. 15 points. He's basically almost 2 points per game. Right behind him, you got Adam Fox with 11 points. So those are two. Actually, we have 3 players right now: Panarin, Fox, and Zibanejad. We're averaging a point per game. That's huge offense. That's great. Love to see it. Chris Kreider is leading the league in power play goals, and he's got 6 goals overall. He has 4 power play goals and one shorthanded goal and 1 5-on-5 goal. So that's Chris Kreider getting back to the 2021-2022 Chris Kreider and not the 2022-2023 Chris Kreider. He's getting in front of the net in the power play. He's doing those ridiculous deflections that he always does, getting gritty, standing, demanding that crease, and it's paying out. So, and obviously you got the Wizard of Panarin just making shit happen, and obviously there probably isn't a better power play quarterback in the world than Adam Fox. So that's what should happen. Mika Zibanejad, honestly, off to a slow start for October as far as offensive production, putting pucks in the net. He really came out of his shell in the later part of the road trip against Vancouver and against Winnipeg. You could see that he was getting more comfortable in what his role is in the team, and he started taking more shots, started getting closer. You could tell that eventually, the dam was going to break and they were going to start rolling. Obviously, he gets the gritty, nasty rebound in against Vancouver, and then he puts the game winner practically, as far as I'm concerned, through Connor Hellebuyck's pads, because it was such an absolute snipe of a one-timer that you couldn't really see it. It looked like Hellebuyck was in the right position, and then the puck bounced out of the back of the net. So it seemed like it warped through space-time, and that's a level of, it's just confidence. I mean, Panarin put it on a rope, tape to tape, just ran a tee for him, and he ripped it. Keandre Miller off to an excellent start, which is good because he signed that bridge contract, and you want him to show that he's worth it. But Keandre Miller on the up. So traditionally he was, you could tell that he had the skill set to get the points and be a contributing, point per game or a little less defenseman. I don't want to say point per game, but either way, he could have been a high scoring defenseman, just like Adam Fox is. And it seemed like he just never really, he'd have those games where he would break out and you could see him, he'd push on the offense, get down below the red line, make those plays. And there's other games where he would play really tepid, really scared, and kind of be on his back foot, and he'd get beat, on the edges and things like that. And I don't see a lot of that this year. He looks confident out there. He's sitting at 7 points. He's got a plus-minus, a +6, so he's not giving up anything, and he's out there for most of the goals. He only has 2 penalty minutes, which for a defenseman in the NHL, pretty good compared to Jacob Trouba, who has 18. I mean, granted, Jacob Trouba did get in a fight, so it's really 13 some change for him. But it's the point. Keandre is really looking to take a step forward, and it looks like that's panning out for him. The other person who I think has just set themselves up for success this season has been Alexis Lafreniere. Typically, in every season since Lafreniere has been drafted, he's been a lot like Miller, where you could see the brilliance, you could see the skill and the ability. It just wasn't there all the time. He'd have games where he turned on, he looked great, looked dominant, saw the player that he could be, and then other games where you didn't even know he was on the ice. You wouldn't have known that his jersey hit the ice. And now he has a presence every single game. I know when he's out there. I can tell when his line gets on the ice. I'm sure it helps that he's opposite the ice of Artemi Panarin, who is one of the best playmakers, probably the best playmaker in the NHL. And shaved head Panarin is an absolute demon, so he's got that going for him. He's just on a mission this year. Obviously, 15 points doesn't lie. 10 assists, 5 goals for Panarin. Two of the goals that Laffy has are courtesy of Artemi Panarin, so 50% contributions on that. Centered by Philip Hedl, who he has a long time relationship with. He's got 2 assists out of Hedl as well. They did the kid line, which was Hedl, Kakko, and Lafreniere for 3 years, so he has the chemistry there. Kakko, speaking of Kakko, has looked good up on the top line with Kreider and Zibby. Kakko is becoming more confident as a puck controller. He's working the boards. He's strong on the puck. He just doesn't. He's got a tenacity about him, and I just wish that he would take the shot more. And that's really across the board. with a lot of these Rangers. Demon Panarin aside, most of the Rangers are pass first, and that's probably because they've been such a skill set team where the coaches have been basically kind of like, when they've been successful, Alain Vigneault, um, Gerard Gallant, it's been systems where it's like make your own magic. And so they've been pass first, and it seemed like they always made the extra pass. I feel like Kako was still stuck in that aspect where he's constantly looking for the pretty play, and sometimes I just want him to put a nasty, just a garbage backhander on the net, make the goalie do something, get the gritty rebound, something like that. He hasn't been playing bad. I just want him to shoot a little bit more than he has been, and that'll come with time, I'm sure. Outside of that, the bottom six has been perfectly fine. That third line with Trocheck and Wheeler and Cooley, man, that third line is going to be able to go up against a lot of third lines. Granted, Wheeler, he's old and he looks old, and he's a little. You can tell it's struggling to keep up, especially when you got Will Cooley, who's the opposite end of the spectrum. First full season in the NHL, first time he's made the team, and he's out there just buzzing. I mean, Cooley looks like a man on a mission. He's got a goal. He just head down, do your job, get it done, and he looks good. He looks confident. Looks like a kid who earned a spot in the team. Being centered by an absolute rat like Vinny Trocheck probably helps. I don't think there's anybody on the Rangers who exhibits the personality that I want more than Vinny Trocheck, where everything, it just get under their skin. If you're not performing offensively, pull a Brad Marchand and grab somebody's face mask. I don't care. Just do something to affect the outcome of the game, get in their heads, do something, and that's what Trocheck always does. If he's not performing on the offensive end, if he's not putting points on the board, if he's not diming it out, he's chirping, he's in your ear, he's sitting on the bench yelling at you, he's talking to referees, he's doing something. And that's something that I think is good for a player like Cooley, because he has the reins to kind of see what it's like, because you're gonna get the gritty part. I mean, the third line's usually half skill, half grit, because you're in your bottom six, but there's still a high level of skill in that third line, and Cooley's gonna get a thorough lesson in the NHL and really everything that comes to bear by being with Trocheck, because Trocheck is we'll call him a cordial version of Brad Marchand, and obviously Brad Marchand's welcome to the NHL for Connor Bedard was the butt of his stick into a kidney, so I don't think Trocheck would do that. Vinny's not like that, but he definitely would be annoying and but be a thorn in the side of somebody's debut. So Cooley gets to be a part of that line. Obviously, contraspect to that, he's with Wheeler, who is one of the most cherished players to have come to the NHL in a while. He has a rich history of success. He was the captain for Winnipeg for a while. They did a wonderful video tribute to him just to show how much they respect and adore him. So he's going to get to learn that side of the game as well. The honorable, to put your head down, go to work, the don't stir it up kind of thing. So he's going to get a dose of both actions. And they're both excellent playmakers. So I think that's going to help him garner some confidence. Now I'm hoping, granted, this is absolutely a pro Jimmy VC podcast, but I'm hoping that they pull up Brennan Othmann, because Brennan Othmann is a second gritty, ratty guy, and I just like that. I think it does wonders for you in the NHL. I think the Rangers were a better team when they had Ryan Reeves, and I think if they get more grit on the lineup, obviously you have Ryan Lindgren, who's an absolute warrior. He's chirping out there, he's blocking shots, he's hitting hard. You get a guy like that on offense too, and then all of a sudden it's just, you don't want to be on the ice, because it doesn't matter what you do, you're just taking chips and taking hits and getting people in the back of your head, and it's just not easy. It's not an easy 60 minutes on the ice, and it wears you down. And this is the kind of team where if you've watched them, that's what they've been doing. They've been wearing teams down. They come out first period, 1-1, 1-0. Second period, maybe put a little dinker in the net. But third period, they have been shutting the door. And it helps that Igor Shesterkin is back to his 2021-2022 season self, where he's making saves that don't even makes sense in terms of like the physics of the entire world. Like he just defies Einstein's theories. He just does what he wants instead of like what the universe says he should do. And it's also been a pleasant surprise seeing Johnny Quick just absolutely screw the haters and light it up in between the pipes. Excuse me. I mean, the two starts that Quickie's had, we are sitting at a 7-1 goal differential. So he's got the shutout against Edmonton, and he only gave up one. And I will say this: he only gave up one in the broken lights that were Seattle. If you guys didn't watch that game, Seattle had a malfunction with the lights, and so the teams had to switch sides every 10 minutes for each period. So Quickie had to face 30 minutes in the dark side. He did really well, and so that's a huge thing because historically speaking, minus probably the year that we had Shesty and Georgiev, the Rangers' backup goalies haven't been super great. And if Quickie's starting out the season this way, he's only going to get better because he's going to be rested. So I think he's embracing the role of a backup. I think that was one of his major issues when he was in L.A. and then eventually when he got pitched to Vegas. It's just transitioning. I mean, when you're a 3-time Cup winner and you're an all-star and you are a starter and you're a Vezina. Actually, no, I don't think Quick has a Vezina, but either way, he's a Vezina-level goalie, and then you get put sitting behind somebody. I mean, granted, I'm sure he knows that he doesn't have what Shesterkin has, but it's a major mental transition, and I think that he has embraced that this season. I think it helps being back home. I mean, he's a Connecticut kid, Ranger fan growing up, so he's got that support system there. But I mean, it's been great to see. It's nice to know your backups in, and you can still have confidence, which has been sorely lacking for Rangers fans. It's a nice feeling to be able to have a solid number 2 option and feel good going into the game. With that being said, they have to keep it up. It's one to have the one thing as a Rangers fan that I'll always be pessimistic. I never know when the other shoe's going to drop. There's never been a time or a season where I have been overly confident in the product that they put on the ice. And what I mean by that is take the 2021-2022 season. The Rangers were really firing on all cylinders, but you kept just kind of waiting, and they have games where they would just dominate, and then they'd have games where they would just look soft and just uninspired. And so I knew that was going to hit in the postseason. It didn't, thank God. But I mean, every single series went to 7 because they didn't have that tenacity to just knock out the opponent, to put that finishing blow, to pull the Tyson and just hit the right hook, put him to sleep and end it. And I granted, it's the first month of the season, but I really think this Rangers team has that. They seem to shut the door when it comes down to it. They have the grit and the tenacity that great teams have, where historically Rangers teams go down 3-1 in the third period. It's over. It's done. They're packing it and waiting for the next game. Now they're out there. They're playing hard. They're getting penalties. They're drawing penalties. They're getting power plays. They're putting pucks in the net. They're not giving up. They're pushing through. I mean, it's what you want to see. And I look forward to it. This season, if things hold up the way they did in the month of October, it's going to be a very, very fun month, especially with the competition that's in the Metropolitan Division. I will say October wasn't a terribly difficult month. I think I don't actually know if we played a winning team. I don't have everybody's schedules up in front of us, but October was Buffalo, Columbus, Arizona, Nashville, Seattle, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Winnipeg. And I know for a fact Seattle, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver are not winning teams. Winnipeg might be. Nashville's not. Arizona's not. Columbus might be because Boone Jenner's been off the rails. And then Buffalo's 50-50. They're a good team. Don't get me wrong. Buffalo's a good team, but I just don't know where they're at as far as their schedule in their record. But you get into the month of November, now we're kicking it off with the big boys. We got Carolina tomorrow. I'm recording this on a Wednesday the 1st. So we got Carolina tomorrow, November 2nd. Then we're at Minnesota. Then we got the Red Wings. Then we got Minnesota again, Columbus again, which is hopefully a loss that can be vindicated because we shouldn't have lost that game. At the Devils, at the Stars, at the Penguins, Then the Flyers, they're at the Flyers, but that should be a win. And then versus the Bruins and versus the Sabres and the Red Wings to finish out the month. I mean, that's a gauntlet there. From you got Minnesota twice, you got the Hurricanes, you got the Devils, you got the Bruins, who just don't seem to lose games. I mean, it's a gauntlet. The month of November will tell us more about the Rangers than the month of October has, and that's okay. That's what I want to see. I want to see what it's like when they're down by a goal, 10 minutes left in the third period, to a team like Carolina that does have that ability to shut the door. How do they power through? How do they fight? What do they do against New Jersey when they use their speed to break up the 1-3-1? You know, how do they clog the lanes? What's the adjustments they make? How do they what's the tenacity there? How do they push forward? What do they do against a team like Boston that's just absolute grind fest? They just put their heads down. They go to work. They battle for pucks. They hit. They do everything. Boston's a game, and so those three matchups shuffled in with Dallas and Pittsburgh, it'll be a banner month for what the Rangers are going to be capable of going forward, and what really it'll be a litmus test for what the 2023-2024 season is for us. And I look forward to it. Obviously, we'll be tracking it every step of the way. As Nico gets with me, we'll be, diving into some more intimate topics. We'll touch on some aspects of Hartford, who's doing well down there. Obviously, Brendan Hoffman's been tearing it up down there. You got a couple other hot shots that are trying to earn their way up. We'll discuss, what they're doing, how they can contribute to the team, if we think they'll come up, when we think they'll come up. We'll preview the matchups, how things are going in the league, how things are going for the Rangers, and we'll be with you every step of the way this season, 2 times a week, every single week through the season. And then in the summertime, we'll probably keep it going, once a week or so, just to keep up on the hot stove aspects and things like that. But I appreciate you guys listening to this very first podcast of Upstate Blueshirts. I appreciate you hanging out with me and bearing with me for a solo podcast, because I've never done one. And I will say that if you want more content from me and my friends, we have the Dojo Podcast Network, which right now hosts 2 podcasts. It'll eventually be up to 5. Right now we have Short, Fat, and Balding, which is a general topics sports podcast. We have Upstate Blueshirts, which is a New York Rangers podcast. We're going to have Is It Me or Is It Society, which is going to be like a psychological breakdown of millennials and Gen Z and what the current societal outlay of, or societal experience is for them, like the housing market, things like that, economic impacts of past decisions, and just how that affects mental health and the ability of millennials and Gen Z to flourish. We're also going to have a political podcast, and the 5th podcast is currently in brainstorming phase. It's basically in pre-development, but as soon as I have information on what it will be and who and what it'll be about, I'll get that to you guys either through this or through Short, Fat, and Balding. But yeah, so we're gonna have a whole network of podcasts with lots of different things to talk about. And so if you want to give us a follow, and check out all of our content. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you on Monday.
Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io.